Hello guys, and welcome back to another cold episode. On today's episode, as you could tell by the title and the thumbnail, we are going to be discussing the new stuff from the most recent update for Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel and ranking them on a tier list in terms of meta viability, specifically according to the Master Duel ladder. This is not going to accumulate for or account for the best of 3 formats that a lot of tournaments play by, but more specifically best of ones and how well each one of these decks will perform. So let's quickly talk about the fact that we got an entire new archetype in Sword Soul Tenyu. We also got some new cards for Despia, which was a rather recent addition, as well as some other cards to just help out different strategies, as well as, most importantly, DPE. Now, DPE can basically boost the consistency and the power level of all decks, so do keep that in mind. As long as you have room necessary to, or room available to play 2 cards in the extra deck and 4 cards in the main deck, you should be fine. So let's quickly do the card by card, or not the card by card, the analysis, starting with our our first one, which is the newest one, Sword Soul Tenyu. Sword Soul Tenyu is a solid tier 1 strategy. I don't know what else to say. It is a mix between a combo and control strategy. It is basically Tri-Brigade 2.0, except instead of making a non-target negate or non-target banish that is that just recurs you incredible advantage, it instead relies on actually setting up negates, which I think is good, but not necessarily better. I think having a wide variety of different forms of negation or just interaction with your opponent is very nice, which is why I don't think it has the highest power level, but it is definitely the most consistent. Basically, every hand is playable. It is incredibly consistent. The Tenyus make the deck just out of this world strong. Vishuddha is crazy. Chi-Shao is not only a monster negate, but it's also a search for the deck, and it allows you to search out Blackout, which is absolutely crazy. It's a pop 2, as well as destroying potentially your own card, which is just, I mean, there's so much that makes this deck run, and I'm definitely playing this deck. It's probably the best deck of the format. Don't know for certain. I think there are still a lot of really solid decks, but this is definitely up there. And it doesn't necessarily lose to Max C as heavily as a lot of these other decks. Moving on, we have Eldritch. Eldritch also got a boost with the release of Lord of the Heavenly Prisons. Lord of the Heavenly Prisons basically says, hey, reveal this card, your back row is now protected. And as soon as you flip up any of your back row, you can special summon this card and set another one. Absolutely insane. I don't know what else to say. That card makes Eldritch better. But it is a bit of a brick in a deck that kind of, they really do want to see it, but they also don't want to see it, if that makes sense. You really don't want to see it too often, because sometimes, if you end up with a hand that's like Lava Golem, Eldritch, Lord of the Heavenly Prisons, and maybe one back row, that's probably not going to cut it. So all in all, it's good for the deck, and I still think that Eldritch is tier 1, especially in best of ones, but it's not anything crazy. Despia is still missing a few cards to really push them into tier 1. Once we get the Branded Fusion and Mirror Jade, stuff like that, Despia will be genuinely a tier 1 strategy and will be absolutely insane. However, pure Despia, which is what we have here, is actually very, very solid. Running the Edge Imp Scythe with Polymerization and Fright for Patchwork engine is very nice, but we are still missing Guardian Chimera as well for that line to really be the most effective. So we're still missing quite a few cards to really push them out of that tier 2 status, to push them towards the top. I do think that they are very good in best of ones, though. If you don't have answers to things like Quiritus, I don't know how to say his name, Quiritus, or Masquerade, or what have you, it can be truly problematic, and it's just an incredibly recursive deck. So all in all, Despia is very solid. I'm going to put it in tier 2. I could see it also be bumped down to Rogue. All in all, not the craziest, but it is still very strong, especially in best of ones. Moving on, we have Adamancipator. Adamancipator did get hit on the most recent ban list, but it is still, I'd say it's probably second best deck behind Sword Soul. So that's where I'm going to put it here in tier 1. It's still incredibly insane. Can play through a million hand traps, as well as just have an insanely dominant board thanks to Block Dragon. And until Block Dragon gets banned, they will be a top tier deck. Unless you literally hit everything else around the deck. And then Block Dragon still can just be played in Megaliths. So, there you go. Moving on, we have Adagnister. Adagnister's Rogue. It's good. It does stuff. It makes an unaffected monster. And then it gets Kaiju'd. And then you cry. I don't know what else to say. It's nice. It can OTK your opponent very effectively due to the 8k access code. But nothing crazy. Ultrageist is bad. Multi-fakers at 1. We also have Burning Abyss. That's also bad. I don't know, Burning Abyss is kind of just mediocre. Dragon Maid. I'm sorry, Dragon Maid's bad as well. It doesn't do anything. Setting up a single negate and some kind of recursion isn't really enough in this meta. Especially with DPE and stuff like that running around. Sure, you could go into DPE yourself, but it is a lot more difficult to get something like Verte Anaconda onto the field just because you don't have that many monsters that you work with. I believe this is DDD. I could be very wrong. DDD is also... It's bad for now because, again, we don't have things like Gilgamesh or Griffin, two of the best cards for DDD, which hasn't come out yet. I expect them to show up at the same time as the Adventure Engine, and as soon as that happens, they're going to shoot up to at least tier 1.5, maybe tier 1. They're actually genuinely that strong, but at the moment, we just don't have it. Dinos are... I'm actually going to put them lower than I did previously on my previous list. I think Dinos, now that DPE has been introduced, they lose to a lot of hand traps, on top of the fact that most of them are playing a Scrap Wyvern build, which is more of a combo build. But the thing is, there are so many going second decks. There are a lot of just strong strategies that can either put up incredible boards that are difficult to break through. Why is Miscellaneousaurus also on here? What the heck? Anyway, just overall, very difficult for dinosaurs to really make a big splash. And I don't think that they are inherently stronger than something like the like Despia. They're not as recursive. So if you break their board, they end up just kind of falling over. And in best of ones, that's more problematic. Baylor Drock is actually, I'm going to put him in tier 2 because of the fact that if you are able to activate something like a zombie world, that can literally just ruin a myriad of different decks. For example, Despia, Sword Soul, Adamancipator, and there are many others that will also just absolutely fall over to a zombie world. So this is more so zombie world than it is Baylor Drock. I'm going to put it in tier 2. It's probably a bit high, but I genuinely think at best of ones, this deck is very difficult to deal with. Especially since Grass That's Greener is also unlimited. Here, I'm going to put Dragonlink. This is my representative for Dragonlink. I'm actually going to put it at the top of tier 2. Very solid strategy. Definitely can combo to basically a similar board that Adamancipator can. The problem is, it doesn't quite hit as hard, and it doesn't do it as consistently. So, it's good, just like a step down. Drytron, after the nerf of Ben 10, I'm going to actually put it down in 1.5. I think a lot of people are just not playing it. I still think it's very strong, but I think a lot of people have just like stopped playing it as much. And more importantly, I do think that the Ben 10 hit really did nerf them. They are less likely to find Ben 10, and they will actually have to spend a search oftentimes to get the Ben 10 into their hand before going into another Ben 10 to search something, right? So it did hurt them, and I'm going to put them in 1.5. Still very good. Not quite tier 2, just kind of on the cusp of tier 1. Grand Maju is a bad deck. It's a gimmicky deck. It bricks a lot, and it plays a lot of anti-meta cards that if you are going up against something like a Despia, if you don't find the right ones, potentially you don't win the game. You know, and if you go up against Eldritch, you're probably going to end up losing that game. No questions asked. So, yeah. All in all, it's bad. Heroes are... I mean, we just got DPE. So, heroes are probably pretty good. They're heroes. They can make Dark Law, and then on top of that, they can also make DPE, which, with just those two, you probably win 90% of those games. So, there you go. Infernoble Knight is bad. In my previous tier list, I think I put them in, like, tier 2. The thing is, I'm going to put them in bad because no one is playing them. I rarely see this deck. I would love to see it more. I would love to build it myself. I might actually make an entire another account. Try and make Infernoble Knight just because I genuinely think that they are very good. The boards that they have set up on me, I have never been able to break. The amount that they can play through is quite impressive. I just don't know why people aren't playing this. Genuinely. Smoke Grenade of the Thief, I don't believe is banned. It might be, but I'm not entirely sure. I feel like I've seen it. So, I don't know why this isn't being played. It was a tier 1 meta threat prior to the ban of Link Cross, and then Link Cross was banned, and no one has played it since. And I still think it's very good, but no one's playing it, so we're going to put it in bad. You know what? I'll bump it up to Rogue. I think it's definitely strong. Just no one's playing it. No one is playing Infernoids. I'm sorry. Live Twin is also bad. We still don't have Trouble Sunny or something like that. You need that card to really make the deck go round. But as soon as we get Trouble Sunny, it's going to be at least Rogue. Madolche is very solid. Still very solid. Rogue tier. Not much to say. They're just Madolche. They do their combo. They make it work. They can't really play through too many hand traps. Like, if you hand trap them on their normal, sometimes that's just, like, enough to end their turn. So, there's that. Mech Knights, because of Invoked, are still pretty strong. Invoked did actually get a boost thanks to the DPE as well. So, I'm going to put them in... I'm gonna put them in Rogue. Yeah. Look, wait, hold on. This is literally, why, what, oh, what? Why are 2 Dinos on here? Dino, and 2 Ultrageists. This is Ultrageist, forget the name of it. What? Anyway, Monarchs are bad. Phantom Knights, I'm going to put in tier 1.5 right next to Drytron. They got a boost, again, with DPE. And more importantly, the fact that they have easy access to Rongo Miniad. Yeah, this deck's crazy, especially in best of ones. It does have a tendency to brick, and sometimes bricking just loses you the game. But if they are able to get off to the races and actually make their combo, Rongo Miniad is incredibly difficult to deal with. However, if you hand trap at the right time, you could just stop the Rongo, and then most boards can break through a Phantom Knight board and then just kill them on the crackback. So, not that big of a deal. Prank Kids. I'm also going to bump up from where I previously put them. I think I put them in tier 2. They are solidly a tier 1.5 strategy with DPE and are only going to get better with the Adventure Engine. And the fact that they have Meow Meow Moo makes them incredibly scary. And quite frankly, I wouldn't be surprised if I ended up playing this, as well as just like this being a hit on the next ban list, just because even preemptively I could see Konami hitting this deck, because the new cards definitely support this strategy and it's going to only get better. Salamangreat isn't doing anything. I'm sorry. I've even played this strategy. It's terrible. Shadalls, I'm actually going to put in tier 2. Why is 2 there? Well, this was really poorly made. Anyway, Shadalls are very, very solid because of Winda. Shadal Fusion is an insane card. With Invoked being paired alongside it, it becomes incredibly powerful. And just all in all, a very solid strategy. I'm actually going to put it at the top of tier 2. I think it's a little bit better than Dragonlink, just because I think a lot of the control strategies are a bit better as well. Sky Striker is a solid rogue deck. It's not too powerful, even with Engage at 2. The reason being is because we only have 1 Kaigari, and we only have 2 Widow Anchor and 1 Hornet Drones. So all in all, a lot of things are still limited that make the strategy not as consistent. And on top of that, playing a slow control strategy in best of ones isn't the best option. I still have an insanely high win rate against this deck. Even playing like bad decks, I'm sorry, Sky Striker's just not very good. Stun is, I hate to say it, it's actually very good, especially in best of ones. The main reason that it's so good is because sometimes your opponent will just like brick and not have the out to your board, and sometimes they'll just scoop. Seeing Inspector Border drop down or set 5 and pass, they'll just scoop it up. So I hate to say it, but it's actually pretty good. Rogue tier. I have never seen anyone play Guru. I haven't. Is it good? Is it bad? I don't know. I'm not gonna rate that one. I literally haven't ever seen it. Thunder Dragons are actually still pretty good. I'm going to put them at the bottom of tier 2. They're not quite rogue, but they're not really that strong. I think there are so many different outs for basically all of their cards because they're not like protected from targeting, so you could just like imperm them. They're not protected from anything other than destruction, so again, you can like banish them as well. Although Titan and Colossus, if you're able to get both of them onto the field, is an incredibly powerful lock. So it's something. They're definitely strong, but I think Zombie World is actually just stronger by itself. So there you go. Trap Tricks are surprisingly still just as good as previously. I don't know what else to say. They're good. They're rogue. Traps are surprisingly good in this deck. Nothing crazy, but a better trap deck than Ultrageist. So there you go. Just simply due to the fact that Ultrageist Multi-Faker is limited. Moving on, we have Tri-Brigade. Tri-Brigade, in both its Zodiac and Tri-Brigade Lyrilisk and Pure form, or all three of those forms, tier 1. Like, genuinely, you could argue best deck of the format. In fact, I would still say that Zodiac Tri-Brigade is still the best deck, even though I did just say earlier in the video that Sword Soul is. I don't know. This is debatable. I'm going to say that Sword Soul is the best. I genuinely do believe it. It just does the same thing that Tri-Brigade does, except a little bit better. So, there you go. All in all, though, the nerfs to Tri-Brigade were inconsequential. Like, genuinely. So, the fact that they are up here at the top of the table isn't surprising. I would say that a more pure or Lyrilisk variant isn't as good as just preventing your opponent from playing, and more importantly, making Zeus. Not a lot of decks can deal with Zeus. Trickstar, I literally have never seen this deck. No, I have seen this deck, but in like meme videos where they get the lock where they like dump the entire opponent's hand and then Droll and Lockbird them so that they can't draw anything. It's terrible. Anyway, let's move on. Unchained is bad. There are a lot of forms of non-destruction removal that a lot of the top-tier decks are playing. But also, more importantly, the boss monsters that they go into aren't actually all that intimidating. So, oftentimes, a lot of the top-tier decks can just kind of walk over this. Also, they do tend to brick. What if your opponent just doesn't destroy your back row sometimes? Or what if they just, banish your monster? Or they just have better recursion than you, like, for example, with Prank Kids. So, yeah, there you go. VW, I'm actually going to put in the top of 1.5. I think that they're still very strong. I don't think that they are as strong in best of ones because they are likely to brick, I should say. There have been a lot of times where I've played against a VW player, they have bricked, and then I just end up taking it with a far inferior deck, simply due to the fact that they weren't able to play. So, VW is still incredibly good. Making VFD is very nice, although a lot of people are playing outs to VFD through like spell cards and stuff like that, like super polymerization, etc., and committing an entire board to try and make a VFD sometimes isn't worth it. But all in all, still in best of ones, incredibly powerful. They are they are going to be one of the best decks coming post Adventure Engine or the Brave token, just because having a more guaranteed play that can help you survive some turns in order to get your virtual world combo online is really, really powerful for this deck. So all in all, still very strong, not quite up there. I'm going to put Witchcrafter in Rogue. DPE helps. They can play Invoked, but, and I mean, Grass That's Greener is also very good. But all in all, nothing too crazy. They're a fine deck. Evil Eye is bad. I'm sorry. It just is. Dark Lords are a bit better than anything in the bad tier, simply because they can play the Despia cards, and Despia is actually pretty decent. Dark Lords are only going to get better when more of the Despia cards, more specifically the branded fusion cards, are released, because they also do want to go into fusions, or just not use the extra deck. So it's not that big of a deal. At the moment, they're not really anything to worry about, though. Most decks can out them. If you get Ash Blossomed, sometimes that just ends your turn, as well as ends your game. So there you go. And then we have True Draco. True Draco in best of ones is absolutely crazy, because again, you just flip skill drain on your opponent, and then your opponent cries and forfeits the game. So all in all, still a very, very solid strategy. I know that I'm missing a lot of different decks here, but this was more so just to kind of show you where the new decks stacked up, more specifically the Despia and the Sword Soul, as well as just how the new support is running. I didn't include P.U.N.K or Ursa Arctic. The problem is P.U.N.K is used in a 60 card Eldritch pile deck, and Eldritch is tier 1, so it just abuses Halqifibrax. I don't think it's as good. I would probably rate P.U.N.K about tier 2. And if it's P.U.N.K by itself, it's a bad deck. It's not very good. Its strategy just doesn't do anything. But as for the other one, Ursa Arctic, that is definitively a bad deck. I don't even need to explain that. It's just a bad deck. So yeah, all in all, P.U.N.K and Ursa Arctic are the two other decks that we got from the new update, and they're barely worth talking about, because what makes them good isn't those cards. Anyway, that's going to be it for this episode. I hope that you guys did indeed enjoy. If you did, a like is very much so appreciated, and if you want to check out more content like this, as well as more Yu-Gi-Oh!, then just be sure to subscribe. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and remember to always stay frosty. Bye-bye.